All right, today we are actually checking out a new figure. This is Transformers Generations Earthrise Quintesson Allicon. And I'm enjoying this guy quite a lot. Um, this design basically is one of the ones out of the 1986 Transformers movie. Sort of. We'll get to that. It's more based on the design in robot mode, but if you've seen the '86 movie, you know that like this isn't really totally how their Alicon or alligator mode looked in the movie itself. They were much more well, they weren't quadrupedal, but they were like down on their bellies with their legs kind of bent backwards at the knee and then little tiny arms. But this guy is kind of more like a hunchback version of that, standing upright, which I'd say that's probably like the weakest part about this figure is this mode. It's not terrible. I do like it. It's just a little bit not accurate to the movie, and like that Alicon alligator mode is just so iconic. But overall, I think like how accurate and it ends up being in robot mode more than makes up for it. But this mode is still pretty fun. I'd say like aesthetically, like ignoring the movie design, the only problem that I really have with this mode is like that the robot mode arms are just kind of chilling right back there. And, depending on if you're looking at it from the top or the side, you could rotate the fists around. I personally choose to have it with the backs of the hands facing up. I think that looks a little bit better, but personal preference. But yeah, it is kind of awkward. And, in like even the promotional images, they didn't even have those plugged in. So they had like weird kind of zigzaggy arms like that. And that definitely I don't think works. But yeah, it's still a little awkward with them plugged in, but if you're looking at it from the front, it doesn't look too bad, I don't think. So he does come with this one accessory, and I would like actually to talk about this because it's kind of interesting. Is that like the end bit is like sort of a harder rubber here, but the rest of it is like solid plastic, which like they have not done that for a while usually, because like usually parts like this they have to make them really rubbery so they're not like a hazard, whereas this is like totally stiff plastic, so you could really stab someone with this. And even like when you're grabbing it, like these little bits here, like they're not sharp, but they're it's I don't think it's that big of a risk, but I'm just sort of surprised that they decided to make it out of that hard of plastic. I'm not complaining because I think it makes the figure better for collectors for sure, but kind of weird. But yeah, you can have him hold it in his hand there like that. Either hand works, obviously. Or you can tab it into either of these tabs on the back. It's not like totally a perfectly elegant storage in this mode. I think it works better in robot mode just because this bit's a little bit more like upright. But it works for this mode. But I imagine like in this mode he's probably a little bit more monstrous and would probably just be carrying his weapon all the time. But yeah. Other articulation. These little arms here, they're just on a swivel joint. The jaw, like basically the bottom jaw can move down that much, the top jaw can move up that much, and like anywhere in between, like you tend to have him look a little bit like he's got a bit of an overbite, which I think works okay. But if you like, oh, like that looks a little dumb. But he's got a pretty big bite radius, I guess, and nice and chompy. He's got some nice, red detail on the inside of his mouth there, and I'm glad all the teeth are painted. The legs are basically his legs for robot mode, so they've got all that articulation. They can, uh, rotate in and out here, and then also up and down. The knees, he's got like a really deep knee bend, I think, to accommodate the squatting in this mode. And then the feet, you can hinge forward and then also have an ankle tilt. So he's got really good leg articulation, especially for, a figure of these proportions. And it's a little bit more apparent, I think, in robot mode, because in this mode you kind of just have him hunched down like this, so you don't get quite as much of a range. But yeah. The other accessory that he does come with is the tip of his tail here. You can kind of slide out and give him a little knife. Usually I sort of reserve that for robot mode because I think the tail is much more part of his persona, I guess, in this mode. So I usually leave the tail attached in the Alicon mode, and then in his robot mode, sometimes take that out as a weapon. But yeah, Size comparison wise, I'm not going to bother comparing him with like vehicles because he's not really like a traditional vehicle, but I will show him off with some other robot modes. Here he is with Cliff Jumper. So you can see the height there. And Hound. And then Hoist, who's not going to fit on camera, just to show kind of a small deluxe, an average size deluxe, and a large deluxe. So yeah, he's pretty short in this mode, which I think is fine. And then to transform him, I'll just take off the weapon and put it to the side there. You take his little arms and you rotate them to the back, and then unpeg this whole section here. Just kind of wiggle it out. And then you can also rotate the fists so they're facing forward as well. And then you take this whole section here, untab it from the back, and rotate it up like this. You want to take this little green section here and flip it up so that you can rotate the waist around and then also bring the legs down while you're doing it. And then you bring this plate down as kind of a cod piece there. And then when you fold the head back, the robot mode head actually kind of automorphs up a little bit. And you take this whole section here, rotate it around on that swivel, and then double hinge it back. And then this tab in there will plug into this slot here on the head. And there you have him in his robot mode. And man, oh man, is this just like a great, perfect little design here. Like, the only thing that I guess is kind of weird is having the little arms off to the side, but even that is like, I think that's fine kibble-wise, but he really looks like the guys from the movie. Like, look at that little beak and head sculpt there. Basically all of the light gray plastic bits, so the little arms, these spikes, the head crest, and then the tip of the spear are all this slightly rubbery plastic. It's obvious. It's actually like a lot stiffer than like most of the sort of soft plastic parts that you see on toys nowadays. So that's pretty nice. So it keeps its form pretty well. I should mention, because so one of the big things in Transformers that I really can't stand is cheating, and this guy has like a little bit of like potential cheating / like design change to make it, because like the original Allicons, like when they transform in the cartoon movie, their head became the chest, and clearly like there are some spots here that the detail is sort of carried over. Like you look at these sort of rectangular bits and these striped bits down here, and then you turn it around and look at the details on the Allicon head. It's like, okay, clearly he's got rectangles there and then striped bits down there. Like, it's definitely different, but still kind of like reminiscent of those two bits. And then like if you look at this bit here, you know, it's got that little shape here, which kind of shows up there. So it's like, it's not really enough to call it cheating. It's just like clearly, you know, they're trying to emulate what it looked like in both modes, where, you know, some of those parts couldn't really like change and morph shape as much as they could as they did in the cartoon. So it doesn't really bug me, but like something kind of interesting there where it's like, just pushing right up against that line. But I think that on this guy, it's totally fine, because they didn't like, you know, give him fake eyes over here or anything like that. Like even the blue from the head is not carried over here. So it's like, I think clearly they're meant to be different parts design-wise, but yeah, articulation-wise in this mode, his head is on a ball joint. It's kind of at like an angle, so he gets that hunchback, so he can look up really well, and he can look side to side decently, but it does kind of like rotate at a slight angle when you do it. The shoulders, now that you've plugged the arms, they've got a swivel right here. They can rotate out. Because of this port, they don't rotate out all the way, just about that far. And then you get about 90 degrees at the elbow there, and then you've got a wrist swivel. There is a waist swivel, but again, you know, you've got this kind of blocking it and then this kind of blocking it. Like, it still works, it's just you have to kind of like pull that part out to do it, which looks maybe a little bit weird in some poses, but overall still pretty good. Legs, same as before, but you know, now since they're straightened out, you get a little bit more range out of them. It can go up like this. If you move that forward, back, thigh swivel, really deep knee bend, like I mentioned before, and then these feet I find are really helpful for getting his poses and like just getting really good stances, because like being able to move the foot forward like that, I think, is really helpful for posing and doing like a lot of weird action poses. And yeah, then he's got his tail weapon here, like I mentioned before, that he can hold in his hand. So he's got the two weapons there, and yeah, pretty good. He's kind of a short deluxe, but not quite as short as I thought he was going to be, which is nice. So like here he is with Cliff Jumper, for example. Hound is, well, if you want to come in that early, Hound, you can come in too. So you can see, like, definitely taller than Cliff Jumper, who is probably the smallest deluxe that we have, or like all the uses of this mold, but also just like much wider, much deeper. So he does have a good amount of plastic to him, and all of the joints feel really stiff and smooth. But yeah, pretty good. So you can see definitely a little bit shorter than an average deluxe, but not quite as short as Cliff Jumper there. And then here he is again with Hoist. But yeah, he's a really good figure overall. Like, I knew that I was excited for this guy, but I was not anticipating just how much I would fall in love with him. Like, especially in robot mode. Like, I just can't really get enough of this guy. Like, I love that the weapon isn't, the annoying soft plastic. I love that he's got like a crazy good amount of posability, especially like considering this guy's proportions. I feel like some of these, poses you wouldn't even really expect him to be able to get into, but he can strike a really good pose and look pretty menacing while doing it. And that head sculpt is just like absolutely perfect with this stupid little, chompy beak there. But yeah, he's a really good figure. Would definitely recommend him. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do BotBots reviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then other reviews like these on Sundays. And yeah, there we have Transformers Generations Earthrise Allicon. And I got 3 of them.